back to Beating a Dead Horse. As always, I am your host, Sean McKinda.
And I'm your host, Jackson Keller.
And we are returning once again with a continuous month of just movies that make people feel good, movies that you just want to sit down and watch and curl up, and you can watch them multiple times. And you know, in this hell world that never stops being a hell world, we sometimes need that. And so we decided to treat ourselves this month. We are back on one of my picks. You can tell it's my pick because I talked about this movie a month ago on my Twitter account and said, hey, fuck, I really want to watch this movie again. So less than a month later, here I am watching Speed Racer 2008 once again, the much maligned movie. This has a 40-some% on Rotten Tomatoes, and I am here to tell you that I agree with the internet, and critics are all cowards and frauds, and they're all fucking wrong.
Paid off by, Marvel Disney shills.
Before that was even a thing, they got paid off in advance because they know that Speed Racer would have been the Marvel killer. This would have been the Speed Racer extended universe, but they got in ahead of time. Like, oh, we got to shut this shit down. Otherwise, we're going to get Speed Racers Avengers 3. And we can't have that. There needs to be a Marvel's Avengers 3 first.
Give me a Speed Racer cinematic universe that is like a combination, like the combination Pizza Hut and Taco Bell. Combination like ancient ass 60s anime like Astro Boy and shit. And also ancient ass Hanna-Barbera cartoon. That's the Speed Racer cinematic universe.
To be fair, that is kind of the plot of Scoob.
That is kind of the plot of Scoob. I've heard that's much less interesting than it should be, though.
Scoob was pretty bad. I have seen Scoob. It was pretty bad. I will save you the hassle on that one.
I wasn't planning on watching it, but I'm down for a Grape Ape cinematic universe.
Oh yeah,
boy.
Scoob is a wild fucking movie. We're not here to talk about Scoob. We're here to talk about Speed Racer, which, if you are unfamiliar with what the concept of Speed Racer is at all, it was an anime from the 60s that came over to the United States. It was pretty poorly dubbed over. Go look up some Speed Racer 60s dub clips. They are fucking wild. They all sound absolutely terrible except for the screaming, which sounds hauntingly realistic. I'm not even kidding. It is wild.
God, I haven't even seen these clips, but I can imagine it in the low ass 60s quality.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it sounds like somebody's getting murdered off screen, and compare that to oh no, speed. Watch out. There is a cliff up ahead, and then just death.
See, you're talking way too slow for Speed Racer, because that's the one thing, that's the only thing anyone ever parodies about Speed Racer is that everyone talks really super fast. Watch out, Speed. We're talking here to match our lip flaps with the Japanese voice dub. You
now understand what Speed Racer is. If you genuinely don't know what Speed Racer is still, it's a racing anime from the 60s. It got really, really popular in the United States. It's not nearly as big in Japan. And we love ourselves some Speed Racer over here, so much so that in 2008, the Wachowskis got a hold of the license to make a live action Speed Racer. It was hated back then by everyone, except for my father, who really, really liked it. And I'm happy he did, because I also really, really liked it, and turns out we were right to like it because it's a fucking wonderful movie. It is wild. It is surprisingly star-studded. It's Susan Sarandon, John Goodman, Christina Ricci, John fucking Goodman, and Matthew Fox, who we'll talk about later, mostly just for me to say I fucking hate Matthew Fox.
Now, do I understand why nobody saw this movie back in the day? Yes, I didn't see this movie back in the day. There is no reason to willingly go watch a movie based on Speed Racer. There's no reason to watch anything based on Speed Racer.
Hi,
Speed
Dad.
Racer,
you watched this anime since you were a kid. I just need to shout out my dad, who is definitely listening to Mrs. Jackson's going, there is no reason to watch anything Speed Racer.
Well, I get the appeal. I get the appeal in broad strokes, but as far as making a like making a modern Hollywood movie about it. Like that feels like such bottom of the barrel thing. Like, oh, that corny old thing that everyone, parodies, like the low hanging fruit. Like every time, like we have to do a cheap, like, imitation of anime in a movie, but we don't know anything about anime. We just go over like the Speed Racer clips. Like they're gonna make a movie based on that? Seriously? A live action Speed Racer movie has no business being good, and yet here we are. It's amazing. It's glorious.
I will say, watching this a second time, there's a lot about this movie that, like, I kind of get why it was off-putting to critics when it came out. It's a very weird movie in a lot of regards. It does a lot to ape, pun not intended, chim chim, the anime sensibilities of Speed Racer, but like in doing so, it makes it just kind of wild in a lot of regards, which if you're, a 2008 critic when the internet is still in its burgeoning days of the 2000s, I can see why this is like, what the fuck am I watching? This was just weird. But like with the glory of hindsight, it has come around to be a big cult movie. A lot of people are like, hang on a second. Is Speed Racer actually good? Because yes, it fucking is. It is a wonderful fucking movie.
I never would have had even the slightest interest in watching Speed Racer if it not for were back in the day when I was reading a ton of Film Crit Hulk. I'm like, Film Crit Hulk, big analysis boy. Like, really respect his opinion in all these movies. And he comes out standing for Speed Racer, and I'm like, what the hell? Like, seriously? But like, I was like, all right, I'll keep that one in my back pocket. And ever since, just more and more, you hear them pop up. You hear the Speed Racer stands coming out to echo the sentiment. Like, yeah, Speed Racer is good, actually. And it is good, actually. And it's unbelievable. I'm honestly shocked. I'm honestly aghast that I like this movie as much as I did.
As I said, I was genuinely kind of worried that you wouldn't. Because, like, this is a racing movie, which I feel like already puts you at a lesser chance of enjoying it. Just knowing what I know about you.
Let me be as far as to say I have an anecdote to share, in that I was at like a friend's house and we were playing Rocket League, and they were busting out Rocket League, and later, like, after everything was over, I'm talking to another friend and I'm like, you know what, like, I respect Rocket League. I get the appeal of Rocket League. Pro Rocket League is really cool. But, like, I could never, ever get into this because Rocket League is just sports plus cars. Literally the two things in this world that I care the least about.
I like Rocket League a lot. And as just a small tangent, I do wonder how much of Rocket League was kind of inspired by Speed Racer, because like...
Oh, I was thinking about that game, yeah.
Yeah, there is a lot of very easy comparisons to make between Rocket League and Speed Racer. Listen, if I can sell you on Speed Racer very easily, just look up any race clips from Speed Racer. We're going to get into the story of Speed Racer because it's surprisingly good. There's a surprising amount of depth to it. There's a surprising amount of heart to it, but the visuals of the races alone give me chills. They are so colorful, so energetic, so beautiful to watch, so just incredible. It makes you understand why people like watching races, because it's basically the best part of races just put to a movie. This is, if you are a fan of video games and you're familiar with, oh man, is it F1G? Oh man, Nintendo hasn't done anything with this problem. It's in Mario Kart 8.
F Mega, the game that Jotaro Kujo plays against Darby the Second.
Yeah, it's something like that, where there's a Captain Falcon, the dude from Smash Brothers, is in that. Yeah, it's like, joking aside, it's like watching an F-Zero race and it is fucking incredible for it. I could gush about just like the aesthetics of it, but I would never be able to do it justice. I just cannot stress enough. Just look up a bit of the race. Look up the Casa Cristo opening. The Casa Cristo opening when they are in the pillars, the pillarmen is so incredible to watch. The Casa Cristo race in general is great. We'll talk a little bit more about that later because I want to talk about the ice cave. But just in general, like the Casa Cristo opening, just look that up and you will understand why people love this movie, if nothing else for the visuals.
The visuals are truly a feast for the eyes. As soon as I saw like what the style was, I was like immediately on board. I was like, oh yeah, okay, all right. This is the movie. Great. The only caveat that I have is that if you are like photosensitive, I don't know if I would recommend this movie necessarily.
That is a really fair point. There is a lot of flashing lights.
Yeah, like even I'm not particularly like photosensitive or anything like that, but even I a couple of times I had to like pause the movie and like look away a little bit. I'm like, whoo. So do be aware, if you have a medical issue related to flashing lights, perchance skip this one. Otherwise, fuck you. Watch Speed Racer. It's great.
Yeah. Abso-fucking-lutely. I do think part of it too, just in relation to the visuals, there is potentially a bit of a learning curve on getting used to them. I think the first 5-ish minutes, like the first 5-ish minutes are split between a race and like flashbacks to kind of establish the characters, establish who they are, establish how we got to where we are. And the race itself looks absolutely fantastic. He's racing against the ghost of his dead brother. That is not a spoiler. That is literally the plot of Speed Racer. That is established in the first minute of the movie. Don't worry. But that is gorgeous. The race against the literal ghost of his brother is wonderful. It's a clever double entendre because a ghost race is a thing in video games and racing in general. It's a time trial essentially. You're racing against a previous racer. Wonderful little subtle nod. Great. The flashbacks to the past are interesting. There's elements of it that look really, really good. When they're in the school, I think it looks really good. When he is in his imagination, I think it looks really good. But when we pan to the outside, it looks very fake and very overblown, and I think it gets better. Like later on in the movie, we see scenes of them outside again, and it doesn't have that same kind of disorientingness to it. And I don't know whether that's just because you get used to the movie as it goes along, or whether like they kind of started to do subtle color adjustments as it was going along, and so it's not as weird and disorienting. And even watching this a second time within a month, like that opening segment, I'm like, oh man, did I misremember this? I watched this a month ago and loved it. Was I wrong too?
No, I mean it is a little shocking. I honestly think in kind of a good way, and that like I had a moment where like, yeah, I felt like something was kind of off about the intro, and I'm like, oh, okay, like I'm not really all that sure about this. But I think for me, once you realize that like, because the thing about the intro is that everything, it's that contrast between like, whatever little coloration and visual effects they did to make the movie like look cartoony in an otherwise like pretty mundane little set, like, just like a playground, just like a school.
It's almost like a live action Uncanny Valley.
Yeah, but then you see that the rest of the movie, like even when they're not racing, it's like Willy Wonka world everywhere. And you're like, oh, okay. This is great. Yeah.
It's just an adjustment thing, honestly. Like, I think once you get the context for the rest of the world, that opening feels a little less outlandish, but I do still think that it can feel really outlandish when you're first getting into the movie and can cause people to bounce off when they really shouldn't.
Because, yeah, what really, the ghost race is what really pulled me in and was like, oh my God, like, is Speed Racer going to make me feel feelings? That's impossible.
Yeah.
His name is Speed Racer. How could I be feeling anything but like, semi-ironic like joy?
And yet it does it. It's like fucking Dark Fate from Terminator. Like sometimes just these stupid named things end up being really fucking good. And this is definitely one of them. Like even by the end of the first race, you already get like the emotional height of it, and you're like, oh wait, oh, there's actually gonna be some stakes here, and like I'm gonna feel things. What a fucking concept, and it's so good.
I mean, camp really is better when there is that sincerity to tell a story. And that is, God bless the Wachowskis. They are not the greatest writers, but they got grit, they got heart, they got soul. They put it into every movie that they made. And even though, like, out of all the movies I've seen, I wouldn't say that any Wachowski film I've seen has, like, the best or the deepest story, but their stories filled with love and care and joy, and that's just nice.
They really are kind of like just this beacon of niceness, honestly, in so many ways. And like Speed Racer is just a really nice epitome, distilled down version of look at how fucking wonderful this is.
Yeah, because their style is weird, and that like they're often, and this is, I mean, they're just very well suited for this material, I think, and that like they're kind of going full like camp. Like, yes, there are like the movie takes the characters like seriously, it expects you to be invested in them, but otherwise like the setting and all the like details and stuff is completely camp, completely ridiculous, and so that fits them very well. I think with other Wachowski movies where I tend to be not as sold is that a lot of other Wachowski movies tend to have this darkness, and I haven't seen that many, but for example, while I think The Matrix is still a really interesting movie and there's still a lot going on and it's still worth watching, I remember being kind of surprised when I first watched that movie, just based on its reputation, that of how kind of straightforward hero's journey it was, even though, you know, The Matrix is kind of famous for two things, being existential and having, you know, kung fu bullet time. But I think that maybe that's part of the disconnect, is that like that you have this really gritty cyberpunk world in The Matrix kind of, and having this really sincere kind of hero's journey play out on top of that, which maybe creates a little bit of dissonance. That's interesting. It's definitely interesting.
I don't think I've seen The Matrix since the Wachowskis came out as trans, and I'd be very interested to go back to it just because it has become far more clearly a trans metaphor for a lot of people.
Yeah, I know that's kind of my big caveat whenever I talk about The Matrix now, is that those readings like add a lot of depth and nuances, and especially like there's some anecdotes about like what sort of headspace they were in when they were writing that, and like particular scenes that they included like from struggling like in their real lives, like their gender identity. Like it's really interesting stuff. Like it's well worth reading. Yeah, I haven't watched it again either in that context. I do overall maintain that it has, because I've seen it a couple times now, and every time I'm always like, wow, like this movie's really cool, but also not really well written. And that's kind of how I feel about this, except maybe it's just a difference of perspective from me, that like I'll take not very well written with some like heart and like genuine feelings from like genuine like auteurs put into it, as opposed to like, you know, cookie cutter corporate bullshit. Hey, like see, that's the thing, is that like the themes of this movie are all about like, well, specifically about being a filmmaker, but like in general about like corporate, you know, sanding down and like, you know, the capitalism ruining everything. And it's so on the nose. It's so in your face. And that is a Wachowski hallmark. But like, no, a lot of times with a lot of that stuff, I tend to like roll my eyes. But like, there's just such an enthusiasm to this one, man. It's like, yeah, you go. You guys tell them.
I think part of that too is just they're operating like the source material is so much in their wheelhouse. Like Speed Racer itself was never super well written, and so like leaning into that, like giving it to people who are very, very talented directors and creative visionaries, but maybe not the best writers, lines up perfectly. And so you get something that is rich and thematic, even if like John Goodman calls somebody a nanja instead of a ninja at one point, which I still maintain is fucking hilarious. I won't hear any argument about that. But it is what? I'm sorry, what? Like that is perfect because it is both anime schlock, real life schlock, and not stellar writing. Like that's just goofy, and it's perfect for them. This is like the perfect Wachowski film. Period.
No, I think so. I'm pretty comfortable with that assessment, even not having seen all of their oeuvre. You know what's also funny is that like it's the perfect material, not just in like the like caliber, but it's the perfect material insofar as like, you know, if we're talking about enthusiasm and sincerity, like I was surprised just in my cursory like nothing research on like, you know, the Speed Racer franchise, God help me, and like, you know, seeing how many things that were like little details that they put in. Like they're fans. They're very obviously like fans that grew up watching it. Like, yeah, they know it's campy, but they're having a good time, and we're having a good time. So hell yeah.
Yeah, this is definitely a movie made by fans, and you can see the little nods everywhere and the little fun stuff to it that you're like, oh, I recognize that. That's from Speed Racer. I know. I understand how that relates and everything like that. And like, I don't know that much about Speed Racer, but I mean, even looking into like the lore of Speed Racer, I was surprised by how many of these people are actual Speed Racer villains. Like I was like, they have to be making up a couple of these, right? And like, nope, Royalton, the Snake Oil guys, they're all real people.
The thing that reminded me about this, about like the point of them being fans, is because I had sort of wondered. I was like, okay, like a lot of this is probably from the cartoon, a lot of the like details, just because everything else, like from what little I know of Speed Racer, which wasn't much, basically bad dub, bad animation, the song, which is got a monkey
beautifully interwoven throughout the movie. Just as an aside, the monkey is less so beautifully interwoven.
I was about to say he's got a monkey and a little kid living in his car for some reason. And Racer X is like Shadow the Hedgehog, basically. And that's about what I knew about Speed Racer. So when I was like just, you know, scrolling through like Wikipedia articles and stuff, and I saw that like Papa Racer is actually like a pro wrestling champion turned like car man, and John Goodman does the wrestling moves, I'm like, that is the kind of detail only like a true fan would know to include and care about. Because I was sure that like, oh, John Goodman can wrestle because this is a schlocky anime world. Nope, that is canon. That is canon.
I actually didn't know that either. That's fucking incredible.
Yeah, so they are obviously fans. They love this shit, and I love them for it.
Again, it really shows through the work. I mean, listen, in case you are not understanding what this episode is going to be, it is mostly just going to be us gushing about Speed Racer because it is an absolutely wonderful movie in every way, shape, and form. Well, almost. We'll talk about the almost in a second. My almost, like, before we get into, we're going to talk about that in spoilers. We need to get into spoilers. I just want to preface that by saying that my almost is not like a don't watch this movie type of almost because like X happens that's bad type of thing. It's an almost in like there's a couple characters I don't particularly care for, and I don't want to look at Matthew Fox's face. That's one right there. I don't want to look at Matthew Fox's face.
I don't even know who Matthew Fox is.
You clearly did not watch Lost, and I envy you for that.
You are not the first person to tell me that.
This is also just something that I do want to mention just because we tend to try and like, if there is a dated slur in the film, it's just worth mentioning because we're in 2020 now and I don't want to send somebody to watch a movie that, you know, they watched it in, you know, they encounter this and have a bad time because of it. There is a brief R slur thrown in this film. It is fairly contextualized. Like it makes sense for the characters to be talking like this. It doesn't make it okay, mind you, but it's one of those things where it's kids saying it. Kids are shitty. Just be aware of it is basically what I'm getting at here. It's very early on, and then the rest of the movie is flawless. So I like to give that as a heads up, just because I know it can be deeply upsetting to some people, and I want to respect you for that. You are valid in your opinion.
On that note, I have one flaw that's not actually a flaw, because it's so stupid that it only enhanced my enjoyment of the film. But I'll have to save it for spoilers, because it actually ties into like themes and shit. So
let's dive into spoilers. But before we do, as always, if you're enjoying the podcast, please leave us a review on iTunes. Tell your friends. It's the only way we grow. We literally don't advertise anywhere. Follow us on Twitter at BADH_cast. Support us on Patreon, patreon.com/BADHcast. Next week, it's back. It is the semi-final conclusion to our feel-good month. We have a kind of a little sneaky way of getting one more in, but this is something that we haven't done in a long time, and I guess since we've been talking about anime all month, we should probably watch another JoJo, huh?
Yeah, buddy.
Next week is Diamond is Unbreakable, so come back for that, you giant weebs, you. Jackson's going to have a wonderful time, and I am probably going to complain.
Talking about JoJo again, it's been a while since I finished reading the manga, or at least the parts of the manga that are complete. So, like, watching JoJo again, it's like slipping into a nice pair of pajama pants. Just nice and comfy. Just like, this is my spot. This is my zone.
I will say it is always funny that like we are including this in like feel good month, because it is, man, I've watched 7 episodes of it so far, and there's a lot of people that die, huh?
Yeah. But it's so stupid. That's the problem. That's the rub.
All right, let's do spoilers here. Let's get into this, because I want to gush about Speed Racer some more.
Absolutely.
I know that you want to talk about themes, and I completely respect that. I want to open up by just clearing the air and talking about the other thing that I absolutely hate, and that is Spritle and Chim Chim. Because I understand why they're there. I understand that they are kind of like the counterbalance. Like, clearly, I have to imagine, at least in part, that this was some kind of like studio influence, because they pop up in the big scene, like when Royalton is talking to Speed like, everything you know is a lie. This is all fake. It's all for the stock market, and it's all for money and power and capitalism, blah, 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 blah. Great scene. Absolutely wonderful. Royalton was clearly supposed to be played by Tim Curry, but was not. And the entire time, seriously though, it is just Tim Curry. Multiple times throughout this really powerful, really interesting scene, it's interrupted by Spritle and Chim Chim going on wacky hijinks. And yes, before someone tells me, I know they tie in later. There's other ways to do it. Let the scene play out. It's a good, powerful scene. Let it be a good, powerful scene. And that's really annoying. And then at the end, there's like this great kiss between oh my god, Trixie and Speed, and it's interrupted by Spritle being like, oh, cootie alert, you gotta watch out because they're gonna kiss, who yuck. And it drives me up a fucking wall, because it was just been a great scene, but they had to be like, remember, this is a kid's movie, and so we have to have the kid and the monkey do the funny, so you laughed, right? As opposed to treating kids with respect and like they get it's a movie and watch the movie. I really don't like either of them, and I do think that Sparky, the mechanic, would have been a better comedic foil, because, hey, he is a better comedic foil. We get him a couple times with him doing comedy stuff, and it's great. He's a great comedic foil, and Spritle and Chim Chim should have turned to mush in the back of the car.
Been a while since we've had a good child hate on Beating a Dead Horse. Now, Sean, I can't say that I disagree with any of your analyses of these scenes and how Spritle and Chim Chim ruined them.
This is leading up to a very large butt.
I can't say I disagree with any of that. And I can't say that I also disagree with the notion that this movie should have featured a child getting red misted in Speed Racer's trunk.
That's unrelated, though. That's just something that you like seeing.
However, Chim Chim, as the name implies, is indeed a chimpanzee. That does indeed make him a monkey, and they do put that monkey in a trench coat at one point.
To interrupt the scene that I was just talking about. I should stress that.
I know. That's the best part. No, I mean, you're completely right. Spiral and Chim Chim are obnoxious. I mean, I'm just a sucker for a good monkey. What can I say? So they didn't bother me that much.
I mean, fair-ish. Oh, God. The movie would be like 15 minutes shorter without them and better off for it, honestly. Like, there are a couple moments where they don't bother me because, like, when they pop up with Trixie and Speed in the back of the car, like, that's fair. That feels like a Speed Racer thing. That's great. And, like, them wandering around Royalton. Like, I'm not even opposed to that in and of itself. I just wish they were better. I just wish they were better.
No, it's completely fair. And especially like I was actually also annoyed in all seriousness, like when they did interrupt like actual scenes. Cause like the humor doesn't feel of a kind with the rest of the humor. Like Chim Chim literally throws his poop at a man's face and it's a real eyesore.
The man takes it and like wipes it down his face over his mouth, and like you can see him like he like clearly tastes it a little bit, and like it is so gross. I'm like, dude, that is so clearly monkey shit. Did you like? Oh, hang on, I just really quick. I thought it might be chocolate cake.
Yeah, this monkey yeeted this brown substance at me. Oh, gee, what could it be? You know, I've never been to the zoo before because I'm rich.
Yeah, it very much looks like he does have to taste it before he goes, oh, it's gross poo-poo. Dumb. That's all I have to say. It's just dumb.
And that monkey poo is indeed what saves the day in a tense situation. That's what allows them to turn the tide on the battle and gain the upper hand. Truly miserable.
All right, Jackson, talk a little bit about your themes. I obviously have more I can say and more I will be saying, but I want to let you talk about themes for a little bit because it's a beating a dead horse. I obviously have to let you off the leash at some point.
Let me talk about the themes. No, this won't take long because the themes, again, the Wachowskis, God bless their hearts, they don't know any way to express theme other than turning directly to the camera and saying it. Actually, that's a lie. They do, but then they turn directly to the camera and say it anyway. So
that is true because like that whole setup with Royalton and Speed is fairly nuanced. Like it's not clear what's going on, and Speed goes home and's like, Royalton is corrupting everything, and there's no way to fix it because I am just a lowly man. And yeah.
So like it's actually like pretty well done. It's not like a super deep theme, but it's well executed. Of like, oh, I have this thing that I'm really passionate about, and like now I'm sort of having to grow up and see the, you know, dark, ugly, like corporate influence and like, you know, everything that's bonding. I mean, this is a pretty like powerful point, I think, that like, oh, this is the thing that like I relate to my dad with, like, you know, oh, this thing that, you know, repaired my relationship with my dad and gave my dad hope is this ugly corporate fucking horse race.
That scene with him, like as Speed is about to leave the house and he's like, Pops calls him over. Is like, hey, listen, we need to talk. I didn't do this right with your brother Rex. I want to do it right with you. Let's talk about this. And it's like, you know, him growing up and the loss of his son and like just the general father-son relationship. It's some real heartfelt shit and it's real good.
No, it's genuinely great. Like it's genuinely wonderful. So like that's why like it's all the more hilarious. Like I'm thinking about all this. It's like, oh, okay. So yeah, like it's a pretty easy to spot subtext, but there's like the subtext of, oh, like, you know, we're filmmakers. We're passionate about making film, but like, you know, we can't do what we do without like the corporate poison like seeping in, and that's
inserting chim chim.
Yeah.
I genuinely don't know whether corporate like made them do this. For my own sanity, I'm going to choose to believe that's the case, but just never cite me on that.
Knowing what I know about the Wachowskis and their style, I'm going to take the opposite stand.
I know too. I'm well aware. It doesn't make me happy.
But so with that, it's like, oh yeah, that's like nice. Like I can get behind that. Like, I mean, I'm a big old sucker for any time a movie's actually about artists and art makers. Yeah, just, work the shaft a little bit for me, Speed Racer. Like, ooh, yeah. But then in like the scene following when Speed Racer's talking to his mom and he's like, oh, Mom, I don't know if I like racing no more. And his mom's, giving him a little heartfelt speech, and she just says, Speed, what you do out there is incredible. It's almost like you're an artist. Like, and I just couldn't, like, so this is what I mean when I say that, like, I'd consider this like a flaw with the movie, but it's so like fly in your face, like, especially because like, the speech that she gives is fine, and then it's like there's a pause, and it's like, all right, just in case you don't get it, wow, Speed, you're a real artist on the road. Like, how dare you let these corporate overlords like influence your art when that's what you do, because you're an artist at your heart, Speed Racer.
Yeah, The artist read on this movie is, we sometimes say like it's an easy read to get that theme out of it. You don't have to read for that one.
Yeah, they make damn sure of that. There's no like, oh, Jackson, are you sure you're not just projecting that you're an artist? You want everything to be about how hard and how noble it is to be an artist. And I'm like, you know what? That's a fair thing. Maybe I should do some introspection and wonder if it really is just me reading that into everything. Nope. There's no reading to be done here. We don't need to turn those subtitles on. It just pulls up that megaphone and screams it in your ear.
Yeah, there are some times, like, listen, this podcast, it's all about, half of the conversation is us convincing one another of a theme that we read in the movie is real. We've had disagreements about it and like have actually had to like go back and cite sources sometimes. Admittedly, some of the episodes where we disagree and actually fight are some of our best episodes. Looking directly at you, Serenity. But like, y'all, this is so clearly obvious. It's
embarrassingly obvious. And that's what I love about the Wachowskis, because they do this in every movie I've seen of theirs.
I will say it is entirely possible that like if you're not in the headspace that Jackson and I are in this type of thing, you might not notice it. It is entirely possible for it to fly under your radar. But all you need is just like a little poke and you're like, oh shit, yeah, you're entirely right.
No, I mean, I feel like this has been a productive conversation, because when it comes to the Wachowskis, it really is it. They're supremely talented filmmakers. Like, there's really talented directors and stylists, and it's not like they don't know how to convey a theme subtly. They just do it subtly and not at all subtly immediately after. Like, I feel like that's a pattern. I feel like if I rewatch The Matrix, that is how I would feel about it.
You know what? I kind of respect it. To paraphrase that quote that everyone has seen, I know people who use subtext and they're all cowards. And the Wachowskis clearly believe in that one. Well, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think it's just kind of goofy and adds to their charm. It's great.
I think it plays well here in particular when it is, family friendly, hyper stylish, like high octane action racer, as opposed to where it's maybe a little bit more of an eye roller in something like V for Vendetta, that is, why he's so serious, Batman.
I mean, to be fair though, Alan Moore is largely he's a serious writer for sure, but like there's definitely some kind of tongue in cheek. Snyder's Watchmen is not Alan Moore's Watchmen. Let me just put it that way.
Well, it is. Because they literally were just like, we're gonna make the entire thing like panel for panel, and yet despite that, somehow completely obviously had no idea what Watchmen was actually about. It's actually kind of incredible that an adaptation so faithful could be so wrong in the spirit.
That is true. I mean, listen though, that spirit is what I'm getting at here. It's that spirit that is very different and very important to it. But yeah, I mean, if it's okay, I know I mentioned that I want to talk about something that like I have had kicking around in my head for a month now and have literally no idea how I would pitch this anywhere. I don't really even have a thesis to this other than to just state the obvious and kind of like point out some comparisons. But I really want to point out these comparisons because I think it's interesting.
By all means.
So the way the cars move in Speed Racer is very comparable to extreme sports in a lot of ways, and like that by itself shouldn't be that surprising. Like the courses that they go through very much look like a lot of extreme sport courses. What is more interesting, I think, is the fact that they move very similar to foot-based extreme sports. And what I mean by that is skateboarding and snowboarding in particular. And I am a longtime skateboarder, longtime snowboarder. I actually have some ground to talk on with this. It's not just me being like, I play Tony Hawk and I know what it looks like.
I don't know, Sean. Those remasters just came out. You're looking pretty soft.
Okay, number one, those remasters are fucking great. I've already put like 20 hours into them and I've had it for like a week. Fucking stellar remasters. Highly recommended. Number two, there actually is a lot of comparisons to like the Tony Hawk remasters as well. Like you can kind of see some influence in there, honestly, just because of how like the car lines work, so to speak. So let's break this down. Let's just start from the top and break this down. First and foremost, what is a line? A line is basically your pattern of attack through your trick combo, essentially. So like if you start at the top of a ramp, you go down, you do a thing on a half pipe, you revert over, which is where you go up one end, down the other side of it, and then you go up another ramp and you do a sick trick off of it. That was your line. That was what you did there. It's basically your intended path. So how does that relate to Speed Racer? Well, there's a couple ways. Let's talk about it from a snowboarding element first, even though I just started talking about skateboarding. It's fine. Skateboarding and snowboarding are fairly similar in a broad sense, the difference being whether the board is strapped to your feet or not, and that does make a big difference. Again, we'll talk about it. So there's a lot of snowboarding influence just in the way the cars move, not so much in the trick element of it, but just in the way the cars move along the ramps, or even the course. I apologize, not the ramps. In that, like, there's a lot of banks and a lot of going up the banks and coming back down as you rotate around. Like that is peak snowboarding. Like snow moves that way, so you go up, you drift, you let the back of it come out, the back of the board come out, the back of the car come out. That is also just how cars drift in general. It's worth noting. But what isn't as much is the way that it goes up and like you can see it hang off the back. There's a little bit of a grind going on, and then it comes down and the whole car spins in this tight 360, 180, what have you. That is entirely a snowboarding thing. Like that sort of tight, you stay in your single line. Like the cars have a wide turning radius. Snowboards, you can basically turn on a dime. You get there, you can spin, you can do whatever you want while on that board. You stay in one straight perpendicular line as you do this. Perpendicular is not the word I'm looking for here. We're just going to move ahead because I'm not going to sit here and think about what that word is. I'm not going to lie to you. So just the general movement of the cars feels very influenced by that sort of snowboarding mentality on like just the way they all glide across the courses, moving up and down the ramps to kind of bolster speed. Like you don't really need to do that in a car. There's no really reason to bolster speed, especially in cars in general. The fastest line when driving is to cut the corners short. You want to cut the corners tight going in and accelerate wide going out. As I'm talking about this, realize that I know more about racing and snowboarding and skateboarding than I do probably about movies, and I'm kind of worried that I've chosen some wrong career paths some way along the way here.
I mean, I'm learning right now.
Existential crisis, file that away for later. So the way cars would work, it would make more sense to hug turns tight. So like this wide arching out and back in is far more along the lines of snowboarding, specifically around like half pipes and something like that. That's how you pump and build speed and move forward. But then we get into the quote unquote tricks of skateboarding and the tricks of Speed Racer, which is where, you know, you use the jump jacks, as they're called in this, to basically flip the car in certain directions, either in a lateral or vertical spin, where the car either does a barrel roll or flips forward and does like a full loop-the-loop in the air. So the aesthetic of those is far more along the lines of skateboarding. Specifically, that barrel roll is essentially what a kickflip is on a skateboard. You're going to get in the air, and in doing so, you kick your front foot forward at a certain angle, and the board moves in that barrel roll style. And if you look up like a video of a slow motion kickflip, or in the case of the moving forward, there's a couple terms for it depending on what you want to do. It's a dolphin flip or an impossible, depending on your foot positions and how that all works out. But there's definitely some parallels in that as well. Like the board moves in a very similar way to it. And I think it's a very easy assumption to make that the Wachowskis took like that flat board movement, looked at it and said, can we apply this to cars of a similar shape? And definitely just said, yeah, we can, let's do it. And they did. And so like you can, if you are someone who is acquainted with skateboarding, snowboarding, the influences are very apparent within this movie. And I think that's just neat is really all I have to say about it, honestly. I just think it's a really kind of neat touch, and is also probably a reason why I really like this movie, because it is a combination of things that I really, really adore. As I said, know a lot about racing from my dad, and I've picked up a lot of skateboarding stuff. I fucked up my ankle trying to do a pop shove it onto a curb like 3 weeks ago, and I really want to go back out and skateboard some more, but I can't, and it hurts. Oh, actually, if you're gonna come at me and be like, oh, what about the times that they do they do the 360 thing when they go in the air, like it's just a full rotation? That's called a pop shove it. It's a thing. It's I mean, the 180 pop shove, it's not that hard, but the 360 ones are harder. And I mean, I can't even say the 180s aren't that hard, because that's how I fucked up my ankle. So I mean, I guess I don't know what I'm talking about.
I was gonna complete cell phone there. I would not have admitted that to the camera.
Listen,
if I were you.
There is a difference between a flatland pop shove it and a pop shove it onto a curb, just in like the pure mechanics of it. Like, listen, if you want me to talk about skateboarding for a minute here, I will talk about skateboarding for a minute here, because the pop shove it on the ground, like all you need to do is get the board high enough to rotate, and like you don't need to worry about maintaining a forward momentum for it. But when you do a pop shove it onto a curb, you have to not only keep moving forward, because the board has to land essentially at all four wheels hits the ground about the same time on that curb, because if two doesn't land on the curb, you're not going to land it. You're going to hit it, and the wheels are going to get stuck on the curb, the rise, and you're going to go off. So you need more speed, you need more height, and you need essentially more confidence going in on it. Like there's a lot of timing involved in a pop shove it onto a curb, just because of the extra challenges that go on with it, especially because you actually have more time to do a pop shove it on just flatland as opposed to onto a curb, because you lose, that couple milliseconds that it takes to get onto the curb. This has been Sean's skateboarding 20 minutes. I hope that was interesting.
Well, like I said, I've learned a lot, but I can't fact check you on any of this. I can say that your analysis is very detailed and well thought out. But we need some outside sources here. So I think we should at Tony Hawk himself and get him to listen to our podcast and give his feedback on whether you're onto something here, because I think that he will, because he seems pretty cool about that. And it'd be really cool if Tony Hawk listened to my podcast.
Listen, if somehow that works, Mr. Hawk, I do just want to say that you have been like an idol of mine since childhood, and I would be floored if you were listening to this. Like, genuinely, there's no way in hell he's going to listen to this podcast, but just in case, I just need to gush. I do just need to gush, because Tony Hawk is the coolest fucking dad out there, and I love him very much.
Tony Hawk, all right, we're gonna simp for Tony Hawk for a minute, because I, as a kid, part of it was that I had some friends who skateboarded, but part of it was just because that was the culture. Like that's when the games were at their biggest, and I'm like, oh wow, that Tony Hawk, he sure is a cool guy. I want to be a cool guy like him. So I actually did buy a skateboard, partially because of Tony Hawk.
Oh man, I am so worried about where this story is going, because I did make you ride my skateboard once in college.
Yeah, no, and well, that's exactly what I was about to say. Is that I had my parents buy me the skateboard, and I tried, I just could not do it. It was embarrassing, and I never got it out again because I was such a pathetic little man. Truly, I'm haunted.
I mean, but to be fair, let me at least assuage some of your hauntings and say that it is a very weird sensation and takes some definite getting used to. I've been actually teaching Sam how to skateboard since we've been in quarantine. We've both been picking it up, and it definitely it's very weird to just trust yourself to this fucking piece of wood that has wheels on it underneath you. That is an insane thing to do.
In retrospect, so in the house that I grew up in, it was on. It was a pretty flat, boring suburb, but it was on a hill. There was a pretty sharp incline on the street, right next to my house. My backyard was all downhill, and the street was even more so. In retrospect, I probably set myself up for failure by going straight for that fucking hill with my skateboard and thinking oh, I can make this work.
Well, see, here's the difference in our childhoods then, because I feel like you had some intelligence as a kid, whereas me, I would have done the exact same thing. I would have fallen, I would have ate shit, been bloody as fuck, gotten up, and then done it again. It's very funny because sometimes I will, take off my shirt. I'm in my own house, and Sam will look at my back and be like, "Were you whipped as a child?" Because my back is so fucking scarred from so many things that I have done. It is genuinely weird to look at. I have a lot of scars on my back, and I didn't even know this. I did not know this until Sam pointed it out one day. She's like, "Oh my God, what's wrong with you?" I'm like, "No, I don't know. What are you talking about? I thought I only had one scar. Turns out I have lots." So I was a very stupid kid, and it does not help that my dad had a very similar childhood. I like father, like son. I definitely did some things that, as an adult looking back on, was not the smartest plan. But you know what? I'm here.
We're still here, damn it. Also, your body's like Old Snake when he's getting examined in Metal Gear Solid 4.
You fucking piece of shit.
I did it.
Just to wrap things up, I just want to talk about a couple quick scenes that I particularly enjoy with this movie. That's all. As a final little thing of just me going fuck yeah, fuck Speed Race. This movie's fucking great. The first time that there's the Mafia showdown and you see Racer X show up to go rescue the driver, oh my God, I can't remember his name. The one that they work with in Casa Cristo. It's the three of them.
Oh, fuck. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah, I don't remember half these people's names. I don't remember the Mafia boss either. But
anyone who doesn't have a stupid name like Speed Racer, I immediately forget. And if I remember, he had just a normal name.
Yeah, it is, I will say, the most Korean man I have ever seen playing a Japanese role. He is definitely a Korean man, and this has been backed up by, I'm going to call them unnamed sources, because they would be embarrassed if I mentioned this on the podcast, who watched a lot of K-dramas as a child and recognized him from those K-dramas. He is Korean. Incredible. But this first scene with the Mafia and everything, it's one of my favorite scenes just because, it starts off looking like this office building and it's great for that. And they're like, oh shit, there's somebody here. And it turns out that that they're in a fucking truck that you just didn't know is driving. And then it turns into an Old West stagecoach shootout. And it's so goddamn good. And there's piranhas. Fuck, man. There's James Bond-ass piranhas. That scene is so fucking wonderful. Absolutely love it so goddamn much. The ice cave, just as a whole, the colors in that, so goddamn good. Just so fucking good. That's all I'm gonna say about that. The colors are wonderful. In the final race, there's a stereoscope in the background made out of a running zebra, and like the first shot of it just kind of establishes it, and then the second one, you actually see it moving, and it's so good there. Just absolutely perfect. Transitions in general in this movie are all really fucking clever. Absolutely wonderful there. And the ending of the Grand Prix when he just like gets in that zone and just drives. So chills. I'm not even kidding. Absolute chills. Even thinking about it, I get chills. Like just tinglies all up and down my body. Absolutely wonderful. One final note that I do just have to say is that there is an opposing racer driving for Royalton who looks so much like David Carradine in Death Race 2000. It's the gentleman in the purple car at the end who uses the spear hook to grab him. And I am so disappointed that it is not actually David Carradine, because it just looks like David Carradine in Death Race 2000. It would have been perfect. It would have been so good, and it's not, and I'm disappointed. And now I want to watch Death Race 2000 again.
Missed opportunity.
It would have fit with the character too. Honestly, it would have been absolutely perfect. That's all I got.
I was thinking about that guy. My man threw away his whole career.
Well, that's the whole thing, though, right? That's the point. That's the themes.
I was wondering if they were gonna be like, because like, ooh, I don't need the thing to beat Speed Racer. And so I was wondering for a minute, and I'm sure this is on purpose. That like, oh, like is he actually gonna, is like sportsmanship gonna win? Like, is he actually gonna, like, you know, stick to his guns and, like, you know, try and beat Speed Racer in an honorable duel? And nope, he just folded like a fucking greeting card the minute he was in trouble.
Well, any final thoughts from you, Jackson? I know I spent a lot of time talking about skateboarding.
No, but by all means, it was great. And you know what else is great? It's Speed Racer. If you are like me at all, if you listen to this podcast and you're like, I identify with Jackson, first of all, I'm so sorry for your lot in life that is true, because my God, it was never going to work out for me.
I refuse to believe that there are two of you in this world. I no, I refuse. One is more than enough.
One is too many, in fact. But you know, in general, if you're sitting here thinking like Speed Racer, like, why the fuck are they talking about Speed Racer? And you're not convinced to watch this movie after sitting through this whole podcast, please do it. I too was a skeptic, and I think it's like understandable to be skeptical about a movie like this. But it's great, and it's even better than we're saying, like, because I still, like, even after being told it was good, I'm still like, it's Speed Racer. How could, like, this be anything but just, like, sort of fun schlock? And it was a visual feast with some genuinely, like, effective storytelling at times. It's wonderful. Watch Speed Racer. Let go of your preconceived notions.
Again, this is an audio medium, and we cannot accurately convey the visual incredibleness of Speed Racer, because it is one of the best looking movies I have ever watched. Like the color usage is just gorgeous. The whole thing is, it is immaculate. It is an immaculate movie in at least that regard. Spritle and Chim Chim, I could take a leave.
His name's Spritle too. What an unfortunate child.
I've been Sean McKinda. You can find me on Twitter at Sean_McKinda, where unsurprisingly I tweet a lot about skateboarding. I also just tweet stupid memes. That's mostly what I've been tweeting right now because I can't skateboard and I'm distraught. Follow me.
And I'm Jackson Keller. You can't follow me anywhere because I don't use my Twitter anymore, because fuck Twitter. The only good person on Twitter is Tony Hawk. Hi, Tony Hawk. Maybe you're listening to this. Probably not.
Called shot. Tony Hawk is listening to this. Called shot. We're going to get Tony Hawk. All right. If you want to follow the podcast, that's at @BADH_cast on Twitter. It's mostly for like updates and us begging Tony Hawk to listen to our podcast episodes. So, hey, you should definitely go follow us there. If you enjoy the episode, support us on Patreon, patreon.com/BADHcast. At only $1 a month, get access to our Discord where you can come and yell at me for talking about skateboarding for 20 minutes because I also was not expecting to talk about it for 20 minutes, but I did.
As if anyone's going to yell at you for talking about skateboarding when this podcast is literally me talking about Metal Gear Solid where you try to talk about a movie.
That's fair. This is probably like a weird breath of fresh air, honestly.
I had to really force it this week, boys and girls.
I'm making it harder for him. One day we'll break him. At only $5 a month, get access to our Discord as well as a backlog of bonus episodes where you can listen to us talk about like some great movies that were fan suggested by the $10 tier. That's right, you get access to everything before as well as the ability to request bonus episodes. We need a bonus episode for this month, so if you have a suggestion, lay it on us. We're open to it. It also gets you a little something.
Thank you so much, Julia, Travis, Pat, Mom, Aunt Summer. Y'all are great. And thank you, Tony Hawk. Maybe you could be a patron.
Yeah.
You'd get a shout out at the end of every episode. you know, get that little boost. Come on, you know you want to.
Oh boy. Also, thanks to the Lords of the Highway for the use of our theme song. It is Suicide alternate take off the album High Octane, Low Expectations. They're a wonderful band. You should go check them out however you can. Obviously, things are difficult for artists right now, theater people, musicians, all that stuff. Please support them. However, donate, buy their music, stream their music, support your local theaters, venues, all that good shit. Also, thanks to my favorite site.com. There's a bunch of us in the corner, but you should also go read. There's a bunch of people doing a bunch of really talented writing over there. Please go check out that stuff. Next week is JoJo week. We're back. Part 4.
No, not JoJo.
Bye.